This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Use my link in the description to get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership. I think if there's one thing I've found myself valuing more recently than at any other point in my life, it's the comfort of nostalgia. I know I'm not alone in this either. I think people are just looking for any hint of a time where it didn't feel like the world was actively falling apart at such an alarming rate. For me, this yearning for days past has made itself apparent in the games I've ended up covering for the channel of late. Remember when licensed games were once full console releases as opposed to just mobile? Weird how multiple brawlers are releasing at once that harken back to the more simplistic beat-em-ups of the PS2 and GameCube era, huh? Simpler games, simpler times. But weirdly, one of the most intense nostalgic hits of all, and I'm talking real knock-me-back waves of comfort, warmth and joy, came from booting up 2020's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remastered, and bearing witness to that opening FMV reel showing a bunch of skaters just goddamn shredding. People out there doing what they're best at purely for the love of it, clearly having a great time pulling off cool tricks. What sent me back though wasn't the fuzzy feelings of remembering what it was like to be outside doing things with friends, it was being rushed back to the Tony Hawk openings of old and realising just what kind of game I was in for with this remaster. See, as the series trucked along towards its inevitable demise over the years, you started to see these titles loaded with all sorts of narrative hooks or a new aesthetic direction that featured very little skating, or they were trying to demonstrate the myriad new mechanics they were packing into the game, all needlessly complicating the action that made the franchise so beloved in the first place. And here we are in 2020 with a bunch of skaters skating, and for some reason, in this day and age, that was enough to send my excitement through the roof. And yeah, I know Pro Skater 5's intro had a similar vibe, but you know, that was Robomodo. They made Ride and Shred, among others. This is Vicarious Visions, the team responsible for what are widely regarded as some of the most innovative and enjoyable handheld ports ever, establishing over the years their keen understanding of exactly what makes the series tick, and thinking outside the box in order to effectively translate that experience wherever it might be played. When I saw their decision to just show people skating, it felt like a statement of intent about the simplicity and fun of their approach to this remaster. One that I'm immensely thankful to say they more than follow through on. Seriously, this is that rare kind of experience that really rejuvenates my love of games. I mean, despite the obvious pedigree of this particular developer, my misgivings going into this remake were palpable, given the series' prolonged mistreatment by those at the helm, and hell, the fact that this is the second remaster of these two games specifically. And yet, Vicarious Visions have really gone above and beyond to do the seemingly impossible. Well, to an outsider, it might just seem simple to graphically update the older games, and boy have they done so in a way that exudes a kind of cool confidence. What you find is that it's often way harder to present something that looks simple and effortless than it is to overcomplicate things. What Vicarious Visions has done instead is pull apart and carefully analyse every aspect of the series on a level of granularity that's honestly hard to comprehend, adding exactly what needed to be added and removing exactly what needed to be removed to do what all the best remakes do: create the perfect representation of how you remember these games playing rather than recreating them exactly as they were. Because as much time as I spent enthralled with them as a kid, there's a reason I don't often revisit the titles prior to Pro Skater 3. This might sound blasphemous, but there's a comparative sluggishness to the way those older games control, their frame rates, etc. Issues that just vanish by the time you reach the PS2 era. Those levels, however, with all their secrets and nooks and crannies, were just begging to be updated. Not merely to a higher graphical standard, but to the smoother mechanical framework of the later titles, where the barrage of new additions allowed players increasingly unrealistic, but no less fun ways to glide around these areas as efficiently and creatively as possible. The crucial thing here, though, is that Vicarious Visions has recognised precisely when those extra mechanics stopped being useful and became pure gimmicks. Like, why would you ever need to actually get off your board? Stealth missions? Get that out of here. We just want 2-minute time limits and simple goals to encourage you to keep moving at all times. Things like Nail a Trick and the Natus Spin might look cool the first time you do them, sure, but what benefit do they actually provide in terms of forward momentum through a level? Nothing, so they go. Sketching is potentially helpful in building speed, but maybe that doesn't make sense in a game where the levels aren't as open or expansive as the titles where the feature was introduced, or where there simply aren't that many cars. The revert, on the other hand, became an essential part of the franchise's identity. It single-handedly facilitated the continuation of vert combos. It's crucial to the flow of gameplay, so it stays. Combine the revert with spine transfers, for example, and you now have the purest distillation of the series moveset imaginable, giving you exactly what you need to fly through these iconic locations in a way that you couldn't in their original form. The new additions they've implemented, such as the glitch effect for bales, might seem like an odd inclusion initially, but actually allow you to get back up more quickly, to the point that you can more or less negate a bales effect on your momentum if you time your button mashing correctly. All in, it's zero-fat game design that, upon closer inspection, ends up going way beyond the broad mechanical strokes of what features they included, and sees the team drill right down into the more abstract but simultaneously perhaps most important thing to get right in a Tony Hawk game: the ever-elusive feel. And if you've never played a Pro Skater game before, it can be incredibly difficult to articulate through footage and words alone just how make or break said feel of the gameplay is. Just know that the biggest reason the Robomodo efforts to revitalise the series failed as dramatically as they did was down to things like a noticeable lack of momentum in your movement, input lag on ollies, the floatiness of grinds and so forth. It might look like Tony Hawk, but Tony Hawk this is not. By comparison, Vicarious Visions really did their homework here, utilising the codebase of the old Neversoft engine and using the smoother, snappier feel of titles from the PS2 era onwards as their reference points for exactly how much speed you should build up. Precisely how high an ollie should take you, how close you need to be to a rail to connect via a grind, the need to be able to instantly restart a run without load screens, right down to elements as granular as exactly how much vibration you should feel upon pulling off a successful revert. It sounds insignificant, but what this attention to detail allows is for you to instantly tap into that muscle memory you've built up over your years with the series without having to readjust to the less charming quirks that came with booting up those older titles. Remember what I said about it being harder to present something simple than to overcomplicate things? This is what I mean. It's this tightrope, traversed with such confidence and finesse by the devs, that so solidifies the remake as a true love letter to the series, while also recognizing where things could be improved. And what results is one of the most viscerally enjoyable gameplay experiences I've had in years, at once mechanically intense and totally zen. While soaring through these levels, I would sometimes find myself snapping out of a kind of trance state to realise that my fingers have been moving in ways and at speeds that other games simply don't require, and I didn't even notice. Never has complete and total control over every aspect of your character's movement felt so relaxing. Let me put it this way, Pro Skater 3 is probably in my top 3 all-time favourite games, and honestly, this feels at least as good as that. That said, there are some issues, I guess? Like, as much as the more agile, forgiving movement model of the later titles sees Vicarious Visions somehow manage to render levels like Downhill Jam and Mall not totally insufferable, you know, at least you're not stuck constantly headed downward. If you miss a goal here, you can always just turn around and go back. Their relative linearity still renders these maps as the wholly vestigial weak points of the collection that they always were. Further, it's not so much a problem if you know these levels inside and out already, but certain goals like Wall Ride the Bells might become a little frustrating for newcomers frantically scouring the map now that the bells in question are more realistically rendered, to the point that they more seamlessly blend into the environment than their easily distinguishable pixel blob predecessors. And oh god, I'm gonna sound like even more of a nitpicky loser here than I already do, but please bear with me. When I hit restart in these games, I instinctually hold down the ollie button while I do it in order to get going as quickly as possible. But here I need to tap it, then wait the millisecond for the game to load, then tap it again once play starts. Otherwise the skater just kind of floats along aimlessly for a second or two, and it sounds so dumb, I know, but believe it or not, I'm not the only person I've talked to who has brought up this issue specifically. It speaks to just how ingrained the muscle memory of this series is to so many, that even if you're providing a more rose-tinted view of the older games, games, those games were still incredibly tightly designed. The smallest of details, the most minute of interactions, matters way more here than it does in other games. That said, of course it shows just how incredible a job the devs did here that these are the biggest issues I could find with Pro Skater 1 and 2. The game made me press a button twice, and the bell rendering technology is almost too good. All told, it's abundantly clear that Vicarious Visions' ability to think outside the box has not dulled in any regard, and neither has the inherent appeal of the series. This is a game where I 100%ed both 1 and 2 within a few hours of installing the remaster, and yet despite this being some of the most fun I've had actually writing a piece in months, it comes so naturally to just gush about how great this whole package is. All I want to do is finish this review so I can get back to playing it and spending forever trying to ascend the new speedrun leaderboards. I'm really not kidding when I say that this has revitalised my love of the medium, that this is my ideal for what games should be. This is the power of games as I see it. That in what is otherwise such a fucking draining, horrible time, a game like Pro Skater 1 and 2 Remastered comes along and just for a short time washes all of that away, making me so thankful that I simply get to experience it. And speaking of new experiences, let me tell you about the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community for creative and curious people. Explore new skills, deepen existing passions, and get lost in creativity with the thousands of inspiring online classes Skillshare has to offer. Are you exhausted from the frantic action of a game like Pro Skater? Why not take a moment to relax and brush up on your artistic skills with Learn How to Draw, a mindset, method, and exercise with illustrator Yuko Shimizu. A really nice class that does away with academic approaches to drawing in favour of practical exercises designed to inject a real sense of fun into the process. What's more, Skillshare offers classes designed for real life and all the circumstances that come with it. These lessons can help you stay inspired, express yourself, and introduce you to a community of millions. This is all for less than $10 a month with an annual subscription, with no ads and new premium classes being added all the time so you can stay focused and follow wherever your creativity takes you. For a limited time, use the link in my description to get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership. There's no risk to checking it out for yourself, and you'll really be helping the channel in the process. Thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and I hope you all enjoyed this piece on Tony Hawk Pro Skater. As always, I'd like to sincerely thank my patrons here. I cannot emphasize enough how crucial your support has been during this weird time to keeping the channel going. If you feel like you can, and only if you feel like you can really help the continued production of these videos, as well as get things like early access to entirely ad-free video uploads by heading to patreon.com/writingongames and pledging only what you feel comfortable with. I am immensely grateful for your support in whatever form it takes. Special thanks go to Mark B. Writing, Shardfire, Konstantinos Sakinis, Dallas Keen, Dr. Motorcycle, Artyom Vitsyuk, The Nameless Guy, Ham Migas, Hibi Amori, Henry Mielek, Lucas, Timothy Jones, Spike Jones, my dad, Bryce Snyder, Anna Pimentel, Rob, William Fielder, Tommy Carver-Chaplin, Leah Chinello, David Björk, Justin Holderness, and Charlie Yang. And with that, this has been another episode of Writing on Games. Thank you so much for watching, stay safe, and I will see you all next time.